Okay. I don't see it. You started the Facebook Live?
Yes.
I'm on Facebook and I don't see it started. I need to be able to see it so I can, when people ask me questions, that's the only way I can.
I see some people have joined already.
Oh, okay. It's on my page. It will be on my Zulfat Suara Council page.
Do you have it on the right page?
She set it up, so.
It should be Zulfat Suara Council, not Zulfat Suara. Might be that, I just don't see it yet. Computer and I are having a day today. Did they say Councilwoman Suara? I'm refreshing here. There we go. All right. Councilwoman Zulfat Suara. All right, Pastor Brooks, you ready for us?
Yes.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining. Thanks to those of you that are here and the ones that will be joining online. This is the third series in our budget conversation, and today we'll be talking about a very important topic, which is public safety. But I wanted to take a different look at public safety this year. Every year when I do this, we talk about the police and the sheriff and our law enforcement and their budget. But last year we started a conversation around mental health and alternative to policing. And so this year I actually wanted to make sure that we're able to share some of the programs that Metro is put in place for public safety that are alternative that MMPD is doing, Health Department, different people are involved, that we need to look at those programs, talk about the budget, talk about the program, talk about how we can enhance those programs. Because I believe when we talk about public safety, it has to be all-encompassing. It has to be all of the things that we're doing as a community, as a government, that will help the safety of our community. So thank you again for joining. I have an amazing, incredible panel here. But before I introduce my panel, I'm going to invite Pastor George Brooks to say a few words. I wanted Pastor to talk to us for two reasons. Number one, for opening his church to us to have this conversation. Number two, because when we talk about public safety, we have to look into our churches, our houses of worship, as a beacon in the community that will actually help with what we're trying to do. And third reason is because some of you may not know this, Pastor Brooks was actually part of the committee that helped with the setup of the jail and the building of the jail and ensuring there's mental health component in that. So, Pastor Brooks, thank you for all that you're doing in the community. Would you welcome our panelists and then say a few words?
Can you use that microphone?
Good afternoon to everyone. It is a pleasure to have this panel here and to have our councilwoman here talk a little bit about public health safety in our community, which is a very important issue. I had the privilege to have been selected by Sheriff Darren Hall to be one of those persons who made up a committee to talk about from start to finish what the new jail would look like. We learned that just over 1 out of 4 persons who might be arrested has some kind of mental health issue. And this committee was made up of mental health professionals along with persons from the community, business persons, and we talked about, again, what it would look like, tried to design it. A lot of people don't know if an officer arrests a person and that person shows signs of mental health issues, when they get to the jail, there's one direction you are to go in for an arrest and another direction you are to go in for a person to go into the mental health area. So it is a very, very important design that took place with the jail, because one thing for certain is our sheriff has some deep concerns, as does Metro Police Department, about mental health in our community. So again, it's been my privilege to be a part of that committee, having been appointed by Sheriff Hall.
All right. Thank you, sir. The folks online, also the mic up a bit, so we may have to, and it says, for those with a slightly deeper voice, ha! Okay, so we all have to speak up and use our, we'll do that. We want the people listening online to be able to hear us. This is an important conversation, and it's useless if people cannot hear what we're saying. Pastor, did I lose the mic again?
Yes.
I think you cut me off.
It should be working.
Technology, I'll tell you. All right, so what I want to do now is I would like my panel to introduce themselves. And the way that I want this to work is that we do not have any stage, but I'll start with on my right all over there. And what I want you to tell me is introduce yourself, talk about the program that you're affiliated with, and what that program does. Give us a description of it. The way this typically works is that as you're speaking, if I have a question, I will ask it. But I try to limit the talking on this panel to about 30 minutes and give the folks online the opportunity to ask questions because it's more about them. And so if each of you would just spend about 3 to 4 minutes, no more than 5 minutes, talk about the program you're affiliated with. I want you to emphasize why that program is very important. And if you do have anything to talk about in terms of the budget, that's where we're going to go up. I may want to ask you, do you think we have enough money in that program? Or in your opinion, if we need to do more, if you think that's enough. I know I'm putting you all on the spots here, but feel free to answer that question if you want to. All right. So I'm going to start.
Good afternoon. My name is David Emhoff. I'm an inspector with the Metro Nashville Police Department. I'm over the Office of Alternative Policing Strategies. In our office, we are in charge of 4 programs. The first one is Partners in Care, which is a co-response mental health program in which we pair, well, first of all, with Michael Randolph from Mental Health Cooperative, that's our partner of many partners. But we pair a mental health professional, someone who has a master's level clinician, in a car with a officer who's completed 40 hours of crisis intervention training. Right now, we've close to finishing our pilot 1-year program. We started in North Precinct and Hermitage Precinct, and we are now in Central Precinct. And the goals of the program is they are to go out and assist those that are having behavioral health crisis. Those people that have high acuity, maybe more aggressive, and they go out there, and the goals of the program is to get better access to care for those folks. Another one is to divert them away from the criminal justice system and into the healthcare system, provide better safety for the consumers that we deal with, the officers, the clinicians, and all other parties, third parties at the homes. And the other one is just improved communication and coordination across all accesses of care and with service providers. Like I said, we started that last June 28th. We've seen a lot of success. It's a pilot, so we're still working out the kinks of the program, but overall, we've had 3 stakeholders meetings, and as of right now, that program's been successful, and we hope to expand to another precinct every 6 months. Other programs that we run is the gun retrieval program, and that's where we try to get guns out of the hands of children. And where parents, guardians, whoever, we want them to take an active part in children's lives and look around. If they find guns in the house, backpacks, in the cars, they can find a way to turn those in anonymously. We are partnering with different churches around Nashville, as well as community centers and nonprofits, where we provide a gun case to each one of those entities, and people can go turn in guns anonymously, and then those pastors or leaders of community or nonprofits can call us. We come pick up the guns, no questions asked. We have agreements with the district attorney's office where they're not going to go back and ask who turned this gun in, even if it comes back involved in a crime. And then we just turn those in. So far, that started on March 1st. We've had 28 guns turned in so far as of today. We're also working on a Juvenile Diversion Program, in which we're partnering with Juvenile Court, the Mayor's Office, Diane Lance over the Office of Family Safety, to have a juvenile assessment center. So instead of taking juveniles to detention for low-level or status offenses, we would take them over to an assessment center where their immediate needs are assessed, such as health care, medical, clothing, food. And then after that, we do deep down assessments to find out what is the underlying causes for the undesired behavior that's occurring. Not only with the juvenile, but for the immediate families that they live with, to find out what are the resources necessary. they get them referred over so we can take care of those core resources without putting them in the juvenile justice system. Because the data that we have shows that if you go to juvenile detention just one time, you're 7 times more likely to go into the adult system, which is what we're trying to avoid. And the last one is a group violence intervention program, which we're working very closely with Mike Lacey, Ron Johnson over at the mayor's office, trying to divert people away from a life of gun violence and creating an off-ramp or creating a new path for them to where we're going to provide job opportunities, clinical services, as well as job placement, educational opportunities to try to see, we want you to stop being involved in gun violence, but we got to give you an option. So in a nutshell, those are the 4 programs that we're running on right now, and I'm happy to answer any questions about those.
Well, thank you. I know we're going to go to Michael to speak specifically from the, Michael Randall. We're going to go to Michael Randall to...
Press the orange button there.
There you go.
There you go.
I thought the orange button is on. Okay. So I want to go to Michael Randall to talk more in details in the Partners in Crime program. But before I do, for Inspector Imhoff, the program that we started with 2 precincts, and now we're adding 2 more. We're adding 1 more. So is there any reason why we're going very slowly, especially if you're telling me it's a program that works? Any reason why we're not expanding it any faster?
Well, I think, and I'm going to let Michael answer this a little bit, but I think we collaborate very closely. One thing I want people to understand before I let Michael get this is that this is a collaborative effort. This isn't a mental health cooperative program. This isn't a Metro Police Department program. This is a citywide effort. So our partners, and really kind of the backbone of the program is Metro Public Health helps out a lot. They've hired 2 epidemiologists. They've hired a third-party advisor. EMS and fire are involved in this. Hub Nashville is involved in this. The mayor's office is involved heavily in this, and Department of Emergency Communications. We want to make this program work. We don't want to rush into anything. It is being effective right now, but I'll let Michael explain why we're going at a little bit more slower pace than some people would like to see.
Thank you. I'm Michael Randolph. I'm the program manager for our Partners in Care program. I think David did a great sum up of generally we have specially trained clinicians who ride in police cars, but only police cars of officers who've gone through our 40 hours of crisis intervention training. To answer your question specifically about right now, the expansion plan is adding a precinct every 6 months. I think there's a variety of reasons why I asked for that time frame, or our Mental Health Cooperative asked for that time frame for expansion. Adding mental health services and integrating them with first responders, fire, EMS, and police is quite the undertaking. Training all the officers, Metro Police wants all their patrol officers to go through that training eventually. We were able to get a training coordinator hired who is now helping coordinate the trainings for the officers. Generally, when the program first launched, we were training the officers. I was training the officers. Metro Police Academy is helping, and it's a job on its own. So training the officers and get the officers ready, we have to have those officers in those precincts trained to expand the program there. We can't put a clinician in with untrained officers who aren't specially trained in that crisis intervention to answer those mental health calls, especially those high acuity situations. Another thing that is really affecting the behavioral health across the board nationwide is staffing. So it's a challenge to hire great staff members who have a great heart and want to do great works for the city. We're going to need a lot of them. And right now, building the infrastructure, I'm going to need supervisors, training coordinators. As we expand, we're going to have to build all of the system up. So we are an accelerated program. We'll be in over half the city, which is the 4 busiest precincts by the end of the year, which will be Central, South, Hermitage, and North, which is the vast majority of those mental health calls according to the Department of Emergency Communication. So that's the majority of those calls as we expand over the next 2 years.
Thank you, Michael. So what I want you to now talk about is that I've heard a lot about this Partners in Crime model, and I know that from last year we're talking about it. We've got a general overview of the program. Can you tell me the success of the program? You have data to back up. Is it working? Is it not working? Should we keep doing it? What has been the experience, both from your people's standpoint as well as the citizens that we're trying to serve? So I want to make sure that we take a little bit more dive if we're going to say this is something we want to keep doing. Why should we keep doing it? And the data based on the people that you're serving shows that it's something that is working or not.
Yes.
David went into the planning and how many people we brought together at the same table, the Department of Emergency Communication, the city, public stakeholders, fire and EMS, police department, the health department, and us, mental health cooperative. So we looked around at different cities who were doing mental health well in their cities. So we saw that how Denver was doing it. They have a co-response model. They have a non-law enforcement model. They have feds to treat people. And we really looked at that city who's doing some great things successfully, and how could we implement it here in Nashville. So we have been able to grow the Partners in Care program, and Denver, in the year 2021, they saw a grand total of 22 contacts in their co-response program. We've seen 1,100 in our pilot program for just North and Hermitage, which those numbers are higher than I was anticipating, and the calls have been more serious. Everyone kind of defines crisis differently. Everyone has a different kind of crisis. Partners in Care, when someone elevates to where they need like a mobile crisis assessment, we define that crisis as a suicidal crisis, someone who is maybe experiencing psychosis. They could be having delusions, experiencing hallucinations, and they might be unable to care for themselves due to their mental health disorder. This could also include people who are at imminent risk to harm themselves or others. And so 45% of our calls as of the third quarter ended up with a full mobile crisis assessment. And that acuity is much higher than we are anticipating for Partners in Care. But it illustrates the need of the program. And really the public health challenges of mental health in our city is just much larger than I think I was anticipating personally, and probably everyone at the stakeholders table. There's a lot of people who need help out there, and we're going to need a lot of variety of programs, interventions, and treatment beds to really help those people. And that's from outpatient appointments all the way to crisis treatment.
Thank you. So we'll move to Commander Lara. I know I wanted to continue the mental health conversation because I know that we have the partners in crime is police and mental health. We're going to go on this side to talk about how are we looking at one that does not have police involved, but that will be on this side of the table. But before I get there, I wanted to talk to Commander Lara about what your office is doing in terms of community engagement, and can you talk about the programs that you're doing, and how is that helping with public safety, and more importantly, I mean, the goal of this conversation is, you all know, we've had this conversation, you can talk to anyone in the community. You have people that think that we really need police. You have people that think that we don't need police at all. You know, we have the data about the incarceration of black and brown people, right? And so all of this conversation is to reduce incarceration, is to increase trust between police and the community, is for the people to feel safe, right? So that's the point of it, and I know that your office is set up to be able to work along that line. So can you tell us what your office does? But not just what you do, can you also talk about is it working, and what is your experience on the ground with the program that you represent?
Well, thank you very much. There we go. Thank you, Councilwoman Suara. So our Office of Community Outreach and Partnerships was created in December 2020 when Chief Drake was appointed the permanent chief of police here in Nashville. And some of the goals that the chief had with this office was to really connect and build partnerships and relationships with many of those communities that in the past historically we have either had a bad relationship with or we have had no relationship with. And a lot of those communities are really our immigrant communities. I would say that Nashville's like the United Nations. We have a little bit of everybody. We speak over 130 languages in Nashville. We have the largest Kurdish population in the country outside of Kurdistan. And so we have a lot of different people here that we haven't reached. And so this office, when we created it, it was really created to build those relationships with those communities. We have in this office several liaisons, officers that are specifically tasked with working with the community leaders and the voices for specific communities, such as we have a Hispanic liaison, which works with in the El Protector program, works with the Latino community in Nashville. We have a Kurdish liaison, which works with the Kurdish leaders. We have an Asian liaison, which works with all of the different Asian communities here. We have an LGBTQ liaison. She works with, again, the LGBTQ community throughout the county. We also have a liaison to the displaced, works very closely with our liaison to the schools. Our kids are obviously our most important prized possession we have, and having somebody there to really connect the police department with the schools, apart from some of the other divisions that we have in the department, is really helping us. some of the things that we really focus on is really trying to listen to what the community leaders have to say. In the past, we've really gone out to these communities and said, this is your problem, and this is how we're going to fix it. And we have gone a different direction, and Chief Drake's one of his pillars is community engagement, and he wants us to engage and to listen and to learn. So what we're doing with our liaisons that are not only for those communities, but all the other communities that we work with within Davidson County, is to hear what the issues are in those communities. We want to learn what are the things that you as a community believe we could do better to help deal with some of these crimes and the different issues that are going on in these communities, as well as just partner with them. Who needs resources? How can we connect resources? Things like that. Some of the things we've done is we have actually, this past year, had the first Hispanic Citizens Police Academy. And what we did there was we took some amazing community leaders, very well-respected business leaders and media, members of the media, Hispanic media, and they were able to go through the 12-week, it was actually 6-week, I apologize, 6-week Citizens Police Academy, where they learned what we do, why we do it, and just really educate them on the police department and how we work. And we wanted them to go back to their communities and get this information out. We also did the very first Kurdish Citizens Police Academy, which, again, we had some incredible and very, very talented, just very well-respected community leaders, business leaders. And so one of the great things out of that one is we actually had one of the members that attended this actually apply to the police department as soon as she was done. So to me, that's a win. Somebody that sees what we're doing and actually wants to engage and wants to use her talents to help the police department serve the Kurdish community better. We are in the process of looking at doing an international Citizens Police Academy where we can get all the different other cultures and other communities together so they can learn. Understanding if you live here and you were born in the United States, you see things very differently than if you're born in another country. And so we want to be able to take those different experiences of those that were born or raised in other countries and teach them how we do things here and learn from them. What can we do to serve them better? So those are some of the big things we've done. Another big thing we're doing is really trying to connect resources. We have one of our great partners, the Goodness Project over up in Pike. They have been phenomenal, and they have blessed so many in the community with backpacks during school and food and different resources that are needed. So we're really trying to partner with different organizations that are willing to and want to go out and help the community. They just don't know how to. So we can go ahead and help them through our police department and say, hey, we can tell you who really needs this, and we can help you get those resources to them. So again, we've got a lot of different things going on, but we're really trying to build those partnerships and relationships with the different community members to learn from them and to better serve them.
Thank you. As an immigrant and as a Muslim that works with the immigrant community and the Kurdish community, everything that you said makes a lot of sense. As a black woman, what is the outreach in the black community? Because I think that we want to make sure we're serving all of the community, and I know you did not mention that, but I wanted to make sure that does the police department have an outreach at programs within the African American community as well?
Absolutely. We have a lot of different community members. We have the community coordinators, like out in North, we have a community coordinator out there, and they work with a lot of the issues. Actually, before I forget, and I missed one of our liaisons was to the faith-based community. And so she actually works with a lot of the faith-based, all the churches and organizations around the state, and she actually works with a lot of our predominantly African-American congregations and our ministers and those faith-based leaders. But we, apart from our office, we also have the community engagement teams that are in the different areas, specifically some of the areas that need probably a little bit more police assistance. We also have our community coordinators that work with a lot of the different community organizations. So we're reaching out to everyone. I didn't say African Americans specifically, but many of the people that are in our Kurdish community, all those in our faith-based community are African American. The communities that I mentioned are the communities that we really haven't had a whole lot of contact with in the past, but we are working with everybody, and we are continually trying to do better, and so we're learning and we're getting better each day.
Thank you. I just, for me, it's about all Nashville, and so we want to make sure that we're covering everybody, so thank you. So we're going to switch gears here, and I have Ms. Jill with COB right here. COB is not similar to all these other programs, but COB as a community organization or board that was set up based on the will of the people is supposed to make sure that the police are doing what they're supposed to do and keeping the police in check. So to me, that still goes into public safety and ensuring that we're reducing the number of people that are wronged by the police. And so would you talk about what your department does? And unlike everyone here, I know that you do have specific budget asks to the mayor's office. Can you just walk us through that in your own words?
Sure. Thank you for having me. I want to first acknowledge my chairperson, Arnold Hayes, is here in support, so thank you for being here. So we are the Community Oversight Board. The board, of course, for those who don't know, is made up of 11 individuals from the community. 2 are chosen from the mayor, 2 are chosen from the council, and then the other 7 are picked from the people, or they can self-nominate. There is a staff. This staff is made up of 10 individuals who support the work of the board. And so what we've been doing for the last 3 years is really trying to find our footing in working with Metro Police, the Mayor's Office, and all of the other stakeholders that are involved in the criminal justice, who are involved in criminal justice roles. And so it's been a difficult challenge as we move forward. We're in our 3rd year. For me, it's my 3rd year. I think the board's existence is going into their 4th year. And so we've had many challenges, with trying to figure out how we work together with the department. And, at this point, I think we were on some really good footing in regards to how we work together with crime scenes and things of that nature. And so, of course, when we start talking about different aspects of what accountability looks like, of course, it looks like it's different for everyone. And so when we get complaints in, that's one part that we do. We do complaints, we do community outreach, and there's a lot that we're still learning. We're trying to actually be a best practice, have a best practice model. Many people from across the nation have really kind of assisted us in what that looks like, what accountability looks like. Lots of people are calling, people are taking notice of what's happening in Nashville. I will say that the Nashville Community Oversight Board is actually doing some fantastic work in the city. It is a collaboration, and I will say that since we have a new chief in place, we have made some progress. And so initially when we first started, we had a lot of pushback, a lot of obstruction, and it just was a lot of work for us, for everyone who was involved, the board members, the staff, as well as all stakeholders, trying to figure out how we were going to work. We have made a lot of strides. I mean, there's still work to be done. You don't know exactly what's happening until people start making complaints. And when those people make complaints to us, you get to see firsthand what's going on within the communities that they are being serviced. And so I heard a lot of great things that the police department, in collaboration with the mental health co-op, is doing, and I'm really pleased to hear about that. I think it's wonderful that we are having some real talks and really some action behind this calls for service for mental health, because we do know that the majority of those contact calls can turn really bad. And so I'm happy to hear that, the work that they're doing in the community. What I did not hear is the systemic issues that are facing departments across, and not only Nashville, but across the country. And so those are the things that I think that we're here to help with. When you think about policy is what is going to drive this thing forward. And so when we have been making policy recommendations to the police department, well, it goes through the board makes the recommendation or accepts the recommendations and sends it to the chief of police for them to determine whether or not they want to implement those policies. They have done some in the past, but there's still a lot of outstanding policies, recommendations that they have not accepted, that we think are best practices. Those, and they're evidence-based. And so I think that that's some of the issues that we face on determining what policies that we need to change or that we suggest that need changing for the betterment of all Nashvillians. So that's one area. Policy is what is going to drive us forward. And just a little bit about the Community Oversight Board. The model that we have, it's a hybrid model. And what that means is we can investigate cases, we can make policy recommendations, and we can do auditing and monitoring. That is a unique position to be in. Not all accountability boards across the country have that. And so I say we're special in that way. And so I'm very pleased that the charter has included that. With having that charge, of course, and when I talk about all the work that we have to do in order to be able to investigate and do it in a very thoughtful, in a very non-biased and objective way, we have to have more help. And I spent 11 years as a criminal defense investigator. And so and so it's very important to me that we're doing these things right. Not only for the citizens that we are servicing, but also for the officers who are involved. And so that's why we have such a really big budget ask. Oh, no.
If you will hold up on the budget.
Okay.
Because what I want to do is I want to get everybody's explanation of their programs, and then I want to ask everyone about the budget.
Okay.
So if we can do that, I think that would be great. So, but what I hear you saying is that the community oversight is doing a lot of work. It's not just about them close to each other. I can turn off mine. I speak louder. Okay. So what I'm saying is, and what I hear is that you're not just doing monitoring of what the police department is doing. You're also helping with policy changes and policy recommendations. And I think those are part of the things that will build trust, because what I'm hearing and what I think all of this is about is building trust, right? Between all of us, the community, the agencies, how do we work together for the betterment of our community, and we have to continue to do that. So thank you. So I'm going to go now to Mr. Johnson. And so Mr. Johnson is in a very special position because when we started talking about the Partners in Crime program, I believe that NOAA had another option, which is called the HEALS program. The HEALS program is where you actually have mental health people go out, but it doesn't involve using an officer. There are people that believes that having an officer there can also add to mental health issue. And it was a conversation last year. So my understanding, Mr. Johnson, is that there is conversation around that. And so if you can speak to, are we starting it? Are we planning to start it? Where are we? What is that program? And I'm glad that you're here. Thank you.
Data and things of that nature. We're in a unique position in terms of working to reframe the conversation, and that's what I've worked to do. Level, and then you have pros and cons, and people fight over stuff, and they miss some very salient points. Some of those points are that, one, North Nashville and Black and brown communities are worth investing in. That implies that those communities have not necessarily been fully invested in the past. The second thing is that we need to explore our mindsets and mental models that are keeping these things in place. Even the language of building trust. Why doesn't trust exist in the first place? The public health, and there is a public health approach to violence, and it involves four things. One, defining and monitoring the problem. Two, identifying risk and protective factors. Three, developing and testing prevention strategies. And four, assuring widespread adoption. Nashville, and I've lived here I'm a huge, Tennessee State person. I've lived here off and on 30 plus years. We're a very segregated city. And we need to address those kinds of issues as much as we look at and try to address the granular events that typically dominate our experience of now. More importantly, right, I think we need to be honest about the opportunities that we provide communities. And Black and brown young people, things of that nature, as well as the cultural training that's needed for us to move forward collectively in a very diverse, city, communities, things of that nature. there's work being done in North Nashville, and Mike is really important because what we've done is work, my systems thinking people will say, work at the margins. There are wonderful grassroots organizations that we've been able to bring together under the banner of the village, and I would love for Mike to talk more about those sorts of things.
Yeah, thank you for that framing, Mr. Johnson. So I'm Mike Lacey. I work at the mayor's office. I work with Mr. Ron Johnson there in the Office of Community Safety, and I think was a really great framing there, Anthony. What has been the mission of the Office of Community Safety thus far is to look at the organizations that are actively working on the ground and are on a grassroots level that tend to get passed over for the funding that goes to larger organizations. So while some decent work is certainly done by larger groups that are aiding the community in ways that builds resiliency, there's often a sort of loss as the money funnels down and gets to those communities, and then the salaries of the people that are actually doing that work often leave that community. So what we've done for the past year is there's been $925,000 that has been pledged to organizations. 100 of it has already gone out, and we've been looking at communities that are most impacted by violence and looking at organizations that are already doing work there. So just about a week ago, the mayor announced that $820,000 is going to be going specifically to groups that are working in the Napier and Sudicum community, because that is a place where there's a large documentation of violence in the community historically, and an underinvestment, like Mr. Johnson was talking about, in groups that are not only doing work there, but are actually from there and are supporting their community. So some of those groups, I'm going to just tap Mr. Claybooks here. His organization, the Refa Institute, is going to be working there doing some restorative justice and case management work. There's a lot of other groups that have a documented track record of working with this population that we're thrilled to support. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. And sorry we'll tap you as our IT guy. If you will pull a chair and just sit right there in case we have any question for anyone from the mayor's office in this conversation, we want you to sit with the panel. And that's a good segue to Mr. Claybrooks. So Mr. Claybrooks, your organization is one of the many organizations that will be working on this grassroots effort to work in the community. So can you tell us in your own words, I think when I was talking to you at this program, I believe it's the Partners in Crime program, where we actually go in and look at, is that what that is called, and describe what that is to me, and if you can tell me exactly what you do in the community.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I think you're referring to Partners in Care. Yes, Partners in Crime is.
Oh, no, thank you. See, this is where words matter. Partners in Care is the mental health. Violence interrupters is the other one, right? So which one is it? Is it Partners in Care? Is it violence interrupters? Is it what is the official name of the program?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So violence interrupters or credible messengers is what we're trying to model in North Nashville. In the lexicon of the council members and things of that nature, there's another name that's being used and has been promoted, and we're trying to shift from that name because of some liability or other type issues. Trademark.
Yes. So we're not using violence interrupters.
Well, violence interrupters, yes,
umbrella.
it's with that process, and there are several national partners that have a stronghold on other terms and things of that nature, and that we're being very sensitive.
So tell me what is, and maybe Mr. Claybrooks can answer this, what is it called and what does it do what do you do in the community?
Well, I'll try to add to that. So when we think about interrupting violence, it's, we're talking about a concept. We're talking about an approach, exactly, an approach to what is happening, right? We want to interrupt the violence. There are various organizations around the country that have branded their approach. For example, Cure Violence is a particular brand that has grown out of Chicago. And you know how some brands become household names, they become adjectives and verbs, and it becomes the thing that everybody says. I remember my dad used to say, open the Frigidaire, open the Frigidaire. Well, that was the brand name of a refrigerator. That's what he was talking about, but we didn't have a refrigerator, we had a Kenmore. But anyway, it was a Frigidaire because that's what it was, right? So I think Anthony's getting at, we probably want to move away from Cure Violence because that is a particular brand that is owned by someone. However, we still want to engage the approach of interrupting violence, and I'm sure we'll come up with our own brand at some point. I want to talk a little bit, though, about Rafah Institute, the work that we do, the approach that we take. Our flagship work is around restorative justice as an alternative to the traditional criminal legal processes. And in the spirit of something that Anthony brought up, I think it's important for us to appreciate that as a country and as a culture, we have reduced our responses to people who are harmed and cause harm to one thing, and that is arrest, prosecution, adjudication, incarceration, and surveillance. We've reduced it all to that. That has become the way we do it for everything. Whether I have a mental health issue, whether I have a social health issue, whether I'm impoverished or homeless or losing my mind because I'm really going crazy or because I have an addiction issue or whatever it might be, we have one response, and that's what we've done as a country. We do that here, right? And I think, to the innovations that our police department, they are responding to that. They are saying there is a different response that we need because what we've traditionally done is not appropriate. It doesn't work, right? And so we view restorative justice as another alternative to that. How do we, one, intervene at the point of someone causing harm in a way that responds to that harm appropriately, both for the person who has caused the harm and for the person who has been harmed? And how can that response be something that brings a sense of justice and healing? And I'll come back to that. And can we do that in a way that does not cause more harm? And so when we think about healing and community healing, Rafah is a Hebrew word that means to heal. I think we have to appreciate that. What is it that brings a citizen, a person, a resident to the place where they're causing harm? What are the things that are driving that? In my experience, both as a police officer and as a person who is a restorative practitioner and works with people who cause harm, I rarely, they're out there, but I rarely meet the person who just wakes up one day and says, I think I just want to kill somebody today. I think I just want to rob somebody. Typically, it just doesn't go like that. There are precursors and drivers and factors that frequently have nothing to do with criminality. It has a lot to do with a lot of other things. And can we address and respond to those drivers? We've been at it for almost 4 years, primarily in juvenile court. We have had just under 60 young people fully complete our process. We only have 2 young people in 4 years who've been convicted of a new charge, and only 4 who've been arrested for anything else out of 60 kids. We have about 40 people who have been harmed who say that this has been a healing, transformative process for me. This worked for me. And so we think about restorative justice as an alternative to getting at public safety on those terms. That kid didn't do it again. Compared to the national average, which is around 76%, talking about recidivism, right? 76% of young people who get arrested go on and do it again, right? Our juvenile court has done an amazing job of diverting cases in all sorts of ways and for all sorts of reasons and keeping kids out of the system. As David mentioned, a kid is 7 times more likely to end up in the adult system when they go into the juvenile system, right? We know that. And so we're the only pre-petition restorative justice diversion program in the state in the Southeast. And we are one of 2 that are east of Mississippi that are doing on felony cases restorative justice work. And we work everything from home burglaries to homicide. We have a homicide case that's going to a community restoration conference in about 2 weeks, and we're really excited about those families who have endured unbelievable harm. So it isn't a lot of data, but I think it gives us a glimpse, a picture of being able to do some things different.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, you said you wanted to add something?
Yeah, some of those factors, I mean, we know what they are, in terms of the social determinants of health, right? Which relates to economic stability, quality education access, healthcare access and quality, neighborhoods and environments that promote health and safety, and increasing social and community supports. So those things, it raises the question, why aren't we centering those social determinants of health in our budgets and other practices, right?
All right, thank you, Mr. Johnson. I wanted to ask for 2 things. I had told my panelists this would end at 4, but I wanted to ask for your indulgence if we can extend it for about 30 minutes. Would that be okay with everyone? This is a very important conversation, and we have a lot of people on the panel. And so this is not the type of conversation that you do halfway and then you stop. One of the reasons why I wanted to do this particular conversation is that in my experience as a council person, we as a government do a terrible, terrible, terrible job of communicating with the citizens. We could have a lot of great programs, we could be doing wonderful stuff, but we don't let people know about it. And we just want them to trust us just because. And so that's why I wanted this to be a conversation of the things that is already happening. But there's another part to this conversation. What I hear from everyone at this table is that there is a way out of excessive policing. There is a way to public safety that does not include, that is not just about arrest. There is a way to deal with people that have mental illness. There is a way to get guns out of the house. There is a way to have the community work with the police and trust the police that is protecting them. There is a way to look at the social determinants of issues in the community that is actually leading to some of these things. That's what we're all saying, and I think we're all in agreement. So here's the question for all of you. If you have, and we're in the budget process, and we're talking about finances now, and we're talking about where we put our money, I would say the mayor this year made his budget to be centered on neighborhoods. His budget is supposed to be about neighborhoods, and he's wanting to put more money in the neighborhoods. And I think we have a budget this year that is actually looking into what is happening in our neighborhoods more than we've ever heard. I can say that the conversation and the program that we're talking about are all new. That is a step in the right direction. Are we doing enough? Is there more to be done? So this is where I'm going to have all of you now chime in terms of the programs that you all are doing in terms of the money. If you have a magic wand and I can give you more money, or maybe can give you more money, what will be your wish list? How much more would you need? Or do you think we're okay? If you think we're okay this year, what is like a long-term, let's say short-term, 2-3 years, what do you think we'll need in terms of money to where you can see the program envision or do what it needs to do the way it needs to do? Does that make sense, everyone? And so, and I know that our commanders and police officers may not want to talk about budget, but I want to put you on the spot. because you've seen the program work. And so if you're saying that I have 3 officers that are going out, to be able to do this, I want 6 officers. To be able to do this, I need 4 officers. Something like that. My mic is up again. All right, there we go. So I'm going to start with Inspector Imhoff, if you can start us on that.
Okay, well, it's a complex question. I would say that.
That's why I said we have a magic, right?
If I had a magic wand, the beautiful thing about the programs that I run is that every one of those programs work in collaboration with other organizations. So right now with the Partners in Care program, not a dime of city money goes to the police department to run that program. Money goes to the public health department, which in turn goes to mental health co-op to run our program. Because our police officers are going to be out there whether we have the program or not. We are training our officers. We have a clinician from mental health co-op that has been embedded at our police academy. And that clinician is not only training our officers in the crisis intervention training, she's also helping train our recruits in mental health awareness and programs that are out there. She's providing in-service training for our officers. She's also providing training to our SWAT and negotiator teams. And that's all done from mental health co-op through a contract we have with mental health co-op. So our officers are getting trained by mental health co-op. Money for this program is going to mental health co-op because that's who needs the money to get us more clinicians. And like Michael said, the challenge there is recruitment and retention. Just like with every organization we see in Nashville right now. I mean, fast food places have hiring bonuses just to get folks because people are, a lot of people have left work. And this is also a new career path. I graduated with a master's in mental health counseling a year and a half ago. And nobody in my class was thinking, boy, I want to go ride in a police car for 8.5 hours, 5 days a week, and that be my workspace. Because they didn't know about it. So Michael and myself and our office needs to go out and educate people that are getting into this field about what this career path looks like. We're still learning because it is a pilot, and it's like I said, it's a new work path. Career path is what does retention look like? What does burnout look like? What is turnover going to look like? Because it is a new type of career path. So those are things we need to learn about it. Our gun retrieval program, the biggest cost for us is just getting our word of mouth out about the program and getting gun cases out to folks. Because it's really doesn't, the beautiful thing about it, doesn't cost a lot of money. We just give out gun cases, folks turning guns anonymously. A lot of with our group violence intervention program, a lot of that is driven by the mayor's office. We're assisting in that, in public health. We're assisting in that. We're just one part of that program. Because like I said, it's a true collaboration, and the mayor's office has put money up for that. And we've gotten some grant money for that to get technical assistance from John Jay College to guide us on what best practices is for that. In juvenile diversion, we're working, like I said before, with juvenile court, Office of Family Safety. So right now we've asked for a grant, and I think we are in a process of getting a congressional grant to build out the 3rd floor of the Office of Family Safety to have a pilot program for the assessment center for our youth. And then later on, I know Juvenile Court and Judge Calloway has a site somewhere, I believe, on Brick Church Pike for a new juvenile court, a new juvenile detention, and also in the plans is a standalone building for a juvenile assessment center. So that shows the commitment that the city has for that program. Again, we are more of a referral source for that program and to educate our officers about those alternatives. So the beautiful thing about my office is we don't need a lot of money. We need some, but not a lot. But we do encourage the city to support our partners in these endeavors because that's what makes the mechanism run.
Can we take some of your money?
You want to take what I don't have, you can.
Are you saying?
But we don't, there's not even a budget for my office. So, the big thing is that, I get it. But like I said, we encourage the mayor and the city to support these programs through supporting the partners they have.
Thank you. All right, Michael.
Okay, so yes, complicated question, but I think David touched on some good points. I'm going to look at things purely through a mental health lens, if that's okay with everyone at the panel. I'm familiar with the crisis system, mental health system, how we integrate with first response. The city got a Game Center grant to start the planning for a non-law enforcement response with the same people at the table, the community stakeholders, the fire department, EMS, the police, the health department, and the Office of Emergency Communication to start the preliminary planning of that kind of program. very excited about it. I'm very excited about Partners in Care as it grows, and we can sustain Partners in Care. I'm excited about our training coordinator. One of the lessons we've learned through the pilot program when we started getting out there and focusing more on mental health when it comes to first response and answering the calls is, our partners at fire and EMS had not had a lot of mental health training. So we started training our partners there so we can they know what we're doing, we know what they're doing, we can all work better together to help our city. And as you said, one of your questions earlier is, why can't we just expand citywide? Well, one of my major concerns is we need to offer our city a great quality of care. And to do that, we have to have careful expansion, and I want great counselors out there to help the citizens of our city and in any sort of program. But this is now, I'll get a little pie in the sky here. So I think we need funding for our crisis treatment centers. We have places for these people to go if we're going to answer these calls. I think we're going to need funding for some low-income outpatient, for our safety net. I know that some of that is statewide. So if somebody is feeling that they're having a mental health problem, they want to talk to a therapist or a counselor or get on medication, that they can make that call and get an appointment very quickly. I think we're going to need beds for inpatient treatment and things of that nature. There's a lot of things in the system that can be improved. And it's great to see that every one of those stakeholders is investing in improving it, and everyone's coming together with the same goal of, quality mental health care for the city of Nashville.
So where you are is that you're saying that you think we're moving in the right direction in terms of funding, in terms of collaboration, just like Inspector Imhoff said, and we just need to keep building on that. But right now, you like the progress that we're making and where we are.
Yes, ma'am. And the mayor's office and John Group, they're very committed to supporting our programs and growing it, law enforcement, non-law enforcement. I want our programs to be able to work well together, refer to each other when necessary. I want the correct response to whatever call for service comes up. So 5 years from now, people won't be scared to call 911 or 862-8600 or 988 when it comes out, and they'll be able to get a great mental health response.
Let me jump in on that. Sherry Fall said something one day, and I think it might go back to what Mr. Claybrooks is saying, is that as a country, we are programmed to call 911 when we see an homeless person, when we see someone who is having mental health issues, and that's where we go. And the police has no choice but to respond to those calls because we call them and ask them to come and pick up this person. So are we moving towards a program where, since we're doing mental health calls separately, is there a separate line to call for mental health, or how does that work in the system so that we just don't call the police again for these kind of calls?
That's it. That's a great question. I think that with the Gain Center grant and all that planning, I don't think I can answer that question effectively. I think as we get a non-law enforcement response and a law enforcement response and a variety of programs to answer these calls, I'm not sure everybody has to be at the table and come to an agreement. And I think that the city, the mayor's office, and all of the community stakeholders and the public are really invested in really creating the correct responses to a lot of these situations, from high acuity to low acuity, and to really help those people. And 988 is implementing in July. That's going to be a response where people can call. They're going to be integrated where they can refer to 911 if it's a high acuity emergency, and also they can handle calls themselves on the phone. They have statistics very low. They can resolve a lot of situations on the phone too. So as far as it all integrates, we are getting there, and we're in a lot of the preliminary stages and really integrating mental health with the city of Nashville.
Just to add to that, just for a little bit, I wanted to point out Director Steve Martini of DEC, Department of Emergency Communication. For our program, they developed a new call triage system. So he went out, and from other co-response programs across the country, he found out what are those most common calls that turn into some type of mental health or behavioral health crisis. So they don't always come across, someone doesn't always come across and say, hey, there's someone with a mental health crisis going on. It comes across as trespassing, indecent exposure, disorderly conduct, a variety of things. So Director Martini and his team found out what are those most common calls, and on those we're going to have a whole new set of questions to dive in a little deeper to find out, is this appropriate for a police response, or is this appropriate for a partners in care response, to make sure we get the right resources out there to take care of the needs of the people we want to serve. And now that we're moving towards a non-police model, or a cahoots or a HEALS type model, that he's coming up with a new call triage. Does he go to the police? Does he go to fire?
Does it go to Partners in Care? Or does it go to this non-law enforcement model? So he's working on that now to say, how do we get the right people based on the information that we have in front of us? And what questions do we need to ask to make sure we get the right people for the right type of call? I just want to make that clarification.
Thank you. That is great. All right, Commander Lara, your program, going in the community, working with the community, is it working? Is it well funded? Are you happy where you are? Would you like to see more? If you have a wish list, and I can give you money, do you need money? You don't need money.
I always need money, but thank you. But yes, thank you, Councilwoman. So there's a lot of different things that we look at when we talk about community outreach engagement, and one of the big things is just more people to do it. Right now, we appreciate the council and how they supported us and being able to get more personnel and helping us with that and opening up the new precinct. But I think that when you have so many calls for service in a city as big as Nashville, 700,000 plus people, a lot of the officers who could be out there doing more engagement with the communities that they serve are out answering call after call, and it becomes very difficult when you don't have enough people to be out there and not just answering calls for service, but also really taking that time to get to know who they serve. And so the more people we have, the better. Apart from that, I think being able to have more support for the recruitment and retention of our department. When we want to go out and recruit, we don't just want to recruit anyone. We want to recruit those that, those from Nashville itself, from these communities that we serve, the Kurdish, the Asian, the Hispanic, those who live here and work here and have family here, those who have a vested interest in Nashville. And so, when you can get out there and recruit those from the Kurdish community, they're going to be able to serve the Kurdish community a whole lot better than me, because they know who's there, they understand the culture, etc. So I think that just looking at, really helping fund more officers, which is a great thing that we're doing, and also, better training for officers as well. The better you're trained, the more efficient you are with your work, and then you're able to, again, go out there and have more time to really engage those who you serve. And so I think recruitment and retention is a big one, and being able to recruit within our city and really giving incentives for people to want to come to the police department. With everything that's going on in the country, it's difficult, recruiting we've seen is very difficult around the country no matter where you're going, but if we can recruit those that are in the city, those in these communities that we serve, I think that they're going to be able to help serve their own communities even better than we could.
So these communities historically don't trust law enforcement. The newer community, some of them from experiences maybe even outside of here, some of them from what we've seen on TV and things like that. So in the work that you do, how is that going in terms of connecting with the people? Are you using people from their community? Is it just officers? And can you speak more about that?
Sure, and I'll speak to just specifically the Kurdish community. We have had so many great relationships that we've built with the Kurdish community. We have our liaison, our Kurdish liaison, and she actually grew up here. She came from Kurdistan and she grew up, here with that community that she serves now. And she has helped us make a lot of connections with the community leaders. We have had a great, just some great relationships that we've built with very respected community leaders from the Kurdish community, and they have really helped guide us on how to deal with specific incidents. I think that's where the change has come. Again, in the past, we haven't had much guidance. We kind of, figured out this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it. Now we're actually asking for advice. We're asking for guidance from them because they know how to best address issues within there. Now, again, in the past, there was a lot of domestic violence. I'll just say domestic violence in certain communities that nobody would say because they'd like to take care of it internally. They say, we'll take care of it as a community, we'll deal with it. Now they're looking at it, now that they've built a relationship and they feel comfortable with us, they're going, hey, these are the issues that are occurring. What can we do together to keep this from continuing? And so I think the more relationships you build, the more you listen, the better we'll be able to serve. And I think that doing what we're doing with the liaisons and really connecting with those community leaders has really helped us a lot to be able to better serve those very different, culturally different communities within Nashville.
Miss Jill, Community Oversight Board.
Yes.
Money. You don't need money?
Yes, we need lots of money. We have lots of money, lots of money.
Tell me about it.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about the harms that people suffer and what we've noticed over the last 10 months in our office when people come in to make complaints. We realize that, and really we just don't have the capacity to service them in this way, but I realized that there was a lot of harm. right? They are experiencing, out of their real life experience of their contact with the police, that they have been harmed and are experiencing trauma. And what we didn't have was any way to address their trauma. I'm not a healthcare professional, I'm not a mental health professional, and so as we are servicing and taking their complaints and they begin to go into what has happened to them, I realized that we needed to be able to do something. And so we asked in this budget for a social worker. This is something that we definitely think we need. And as I listened to what Mr. Claybrooks and Mr. Johnson said, I mean, this is an issue that they're seeing too. And not only is it that we need to have some restorative justice, we also need to have some real healing. And that the people that are coming into our office are looking for help. And so they have multiple things that are happening. So when I think about it, they're experiencing not only their encounter with the police, but then I looked at what is it that we're giving them? We're giving them maybe a resolution to that. But for instance, if someone is shot and killed by the police, and their family reaches out, the person that was killed could possibly be the sole breadwinner of the family. And so I thought, well, how do we address all of this, right? How do we take a person and make them whole? I think that we as a city have a responsibility to address the harms that are happening to the people who have been actually harmed by our city workers. And so that was why we wanted a social worker. I mean, just one social worker is where we're going to start, but we know that's not enough. Because making people restored to wholeness it's not something that can be done just by one person. It has to be different hands touching people. And I understand what it is because I've also had my own encounters, negative with the police myself, and I was a police officer. So we all have that. None of us are exempt from having these experiences. And also, when we think about the whole total budget ask that I asked for, it's a national conversation around police accountability. It's not new in that circle, but maybe for those who are listening, what the national average is that we ask for 1 penny for every dollar that the police department's budget is. Because when you look at it in a real simple way, and I'll just be really transparent about it, for our department with 3 investigators, what that looks like is that for every police officer here, we would be servicing 1 investigator, 517 officers. All right, and so in this new budget ask, it would still bring us above the national average. So that would give us, with the 2 investigators that the mayor has allocated for us, that would still be 327 officers to 1 investigator. If in fact we got the 1 penny on the dollar, we would be closer to that national average of 222 officers. And so as the department builds on I think they're getting 46 positions. We have to take into account that has to increase our budget in order to be able to service the community members that we may have encounters with. And so that's our ask. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So did you get all of that from the budget, from the mayor's budget?
No. So what the mayor's budget, what they gave us was 2 investigators, a program specialist, and an administrative service manager. As we, over the last 3 years, began to look at how we needed to build out our department through an organizational level, I realized that we didn't have any mid-level management in our office. We also did not have enough people. For the first 3 years, we did not ask for budget increases because we didn't really know what areas we needed. We didn't know how our numbers were going to increase, but every year our numbers of complaints have increased. The first year we had 30 complaints, the next year we had 36 complaints, last year we had 75 or 78, and I think on this year we're going to be over 100. That's what we're projecting. So we have to have our budget. I think that the 9 positions that we ask are very needed they're vital roles in our department. And we would still have a small department, even with those 9. And so right now we have 4, maybe 2 more might come. That's 6, but those other 3 positions are necessary as well.
Thank you. I think what I like about what you said, because I think when people look at the COB, people look at the COB as the place to complain about the police department. and that what you do basically is investigate what the officers did wrong. But what you've explained also is that you do go beyond that in terms of people walking into your office. How do you make them all after that experience? It's not just about going after the police department, but about helping the people that walk in the door with that experience. And I think that's what I love about that. I'm happy to tell you that COB is already in my wish list for increased funding, and it's going to stay in there. I do this budget conversation after the mayor releases his budget because I want to hear from the people, and it allows me to include things in my wish list to recommend to council to increase, and I hope that my colleagues will support that wish list, because I do think that a 1% off, which takes to about 2 million budget, is not too much. So that is my take on that. Thank you for being here. Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, I'm going to gravely disappoint you and not talk about budgets.
Oh,
that's fine. Or purview or anything of that nature. I will do this, however. I think we need to be more resolute in how we incorporate what we're learning into whatever fiscal responsibilities and things of that nature. We do a horrible job as a city, as a community, and this is across the United States, with listening to people. People complain or share their experiences all the time. We proceed as business as usual, as if it's zero sum or whatever. That's really important, because Nashville does have a responsibility to every citizen in Davidson County, not just the ones that make a certain threshold of income. People that have serious issues with the budget, they'll complain, and you're going to pass the budget anyway, whether those needs are addressed.
Right.
And we've been doing it over and over and over again. And then we say things like, in moments like this, well, we need to build trust. Right? How can you build trust with me when you're not listening to me or addressing actively my needs? The other thing is, just talking about listening to people. Listening does not stop bullets. Listening does not increase someone's income that they can bring home to take care of their family. Those are those kinds of issues that I think are relevant and germane to really supporting people, caring about people, and being true to that responsibility that we have.
Before Mr. Claybrook speaks, I have to respond. I agree with everything that you said, and that is the purpose of why we're here. I will tell you that in our budget, when you talk about people's income in Tennessee, yes, it's abysmal. People still make $7.25 an hour, what they made 10 years ago. But the minimum wage is a state issue, not a metro issue. Metro employees are now being put at $15, some at $18 an hour. So we as a council are listening and trying to address as best as we can. We've got the participatory budget in North Nashville that we're doing. All of this program that we're talking about is coming out of that. Is it enough? No. Do we need to do more? Yes. But I ran on a moral budget. And I always tell folks that you cannot have a moral budget if you don't know what the issues are. But when you know the issues, then you can put your money to tackle those issues. That's why we're here. Last year when we did a budget conversation with the school, and the school talked about social-emotional learning, what did we do? We put money in advocacy centers in our schools. It was not originally in the budget. We added to every school. That is the point of this conversation. So I'm letting you know that I'm not the one that talks just to talk. I talked to Miss Jill. She told me they needed money, and went and put it on my wish list. So this is not talk for talk's sake. That is why we're doing this, to be able to do something. Now, is it enough? Are we putting in as much as people want to see? No, we're not. But we have to keep talking about programs that work so that people can support it, so that when we say we need more money for partners in care, folks know what partners in care is. When we're talking about violent interrupters, people know what it is. And until we do that, and I'm also going to tell you something else, and I want to digress a little bit, is that part of what we're doing here is not just government. We need to educate the people in the community because people don't know what they need. Sometimes you say we need to do programs like this, other people will say, no, we don't need that. So we do need to continue to work on it as a government, as churches, as agencies, as individuals. Yes, I'm with you. But please do know that you have a government that is, or people on the council and everyone here saying the same thing. Things cannot continue the way they are. And we have to keep making those changes, and we will. So, Mr. Claybrooks, yeah, you don't need money, right?
This is a complicated question.
Everybody says that. Not everybody does it.
Well, I lead a nonprofit, and we always need money, right? We think about, I may have money today, but will I have it next year? We start this program thing today. Can we sustain it over time? And so from that perspective, it is very simple. Yes, we need more money. We need more restorative justice work. We need more facilitators. We need, we want to expand restorative justice into the adult court system, and we have a commitment from our district attorney to do that, right? We need to continue to expand it in our juvenile court system, and we have commitment from our juvenile court judge to do that. That takes people, keeping in mind that restorative justice is a relationship business. Okay, let me transfer that to the budget. That's a salary, right? That's not a pan of widgets or toys, or it's not decorating a room. It's a salary and benefits and retirement for people who want, and it's salary in a city like Nashville that is growing in terms of what it takes to live here, right? And so as a nonprofit leader, and I'm gonna come back. As a nonprofit leader, I want to be able to pay staff what they need to be paid, right? That's critically important. And so if I'm responding to an RFP at the mayor's office, or I'm reaching out to a foundation, and I'm asking for 18 or 20% benefits and a base salary, that's commensurate with what it takes to live here, that's not greedy nonprofit. That is, listen, to do this work, and it's hard. It is tough work. I mean, it's not any harder than what others are doing here, but it's very, very difficult work. The second thing I want to say is, and so yes, we need money because this needs scaling, right? It just needs scaling, which brings me to my second point, which really puts me in a place of advocating for other nonprofits that are in our city, especially small ones, especially ones of color. I cannot overstate how complex the challenges are that we are working on. Anthony talked about, the granular nature of programs. Yes, they're designed to deal with systemic issues. We are designed to work with the mayor's office and with public health and with the police department and with the DA and with courts. That's the way we're built, right? And we intend to be that way because there needs to be that level of engagement for more nonprofits. We don't have enough of that. But there are, I am in the village with the mayor's office, which I think is a beautiful, beautiful thing, but I see dozens of small nonprofits that are tackling a particular issue in a particular neighborhood, and they're lost in the sea of forgetfulness, of oblivion. Nobody's paying attention to the work that they're doing, but the work that they're doing really matters for the people that they're serving. And they need to be paid attention to. They need to be paid attention to. The one person organization that's out there and she's, and she's got her day job and she's trying to do the nonprofit thing on the weekend, and she's doing it because she was a victim of the situation and she's got a heart for it. Man, she needs funding. She needs a salary. She needs benefits. She needs to be able to hire an assistant. She needs to be able to hire somebody to write grants for her and monitor the grants and do the reports and so forth. They need that. We need that as well. And again, I want to come back to it. We need it because the problems are complex, and we need those small nonprofits, those small grassroots, those 1, 2, 3, 4 organization entities to take pieces of the problem. We could have the tightest police department in the nation and the tightest city council in the nation and the most committed mayor's office in the nation. We still would not solve the complexity of the issues. And so as we seek to make police better, as we seek to make city council more listening, as we seek to, be more responsive at this, macro level, we have to include as a part of that dedicated funding to small nonprofits, especially in communities of color, because guess what? They know what the crap is going on. They know what the answers are. We don't. I'm talking at the system level. We don't because we're not there. We need an investment in those smaller nonprofit organizations because I believe that that's a solution. That is a meaningful solution.
Can I add something? Real quick. I appreciate all that you said because I agree with you. I am referring people to small nonprofits because we don't have the capacity to help. And when I think about that, I think about the police department has help. They have a whole pass of behavioral health within their department. So whenever a police officer is involved in a police officer shooting or has any type of police issue, what they do is they're referred to that department.